Yo, what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN. Today, I want to talk about dying, dead / low activity kingdoms, and should we force / pure merge them together so that way we can take a bunch of kingdoms that don't have a lot of activity and make a kingdom that has a decent to good amount of activity. And so I'm going to show you some stats today from a number of kingdoms that are at or under 1 billion power for their top 300, along with give some examples on why I think this could be a good direction for the game overall. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us up because that helps out a lot. So let me start off by showing some data, and then we're going to get into what I think is at least one or two, a couple points here that will hopefully make sense as we continue. So let's start off. We're going to show you the first set here, which is going to be, let me do it like this so that way you guys can still see with the cam. So there's 86 kingdoms at the moment. 84 if you want to be technical, right? This pool was done from the 26th, so about 3 days ago. And again, for those of you that are interested in data and you'd like to get information, right, we use this with the data bot that Fuzzy and I work on, and again with him as the engineer. If you want to get information, link to the Discord for the data bot in the pinned comment description down below. The thing we're going to look at here mostly, and you can see the season portion is very important, right? So this is the top 300 power. This is the kingdom number. We have the season they're in. This is total kingdom power, right? Just so it's listed. The total amount of lords there, and what that means is that an account that is visible on the map, not one that has not either come back from KVK or one that has exceeded its 1 day to 3 month inactivity window, that we know if your account is Siege 25, you have to be inactive for 3 months in order for your character to then basically disappear from the map. But obviously from CH1 up until 25, right, those dates vary, or the duration of time varies until your city will disappear. Ally Lords is how many total lords on the map are actually in an alliance. That is important because the ones that are not in an alliance have a higher percentage chance of just being probably more inactive, right, or less active. Then you have the average alliance power, the average power of all the lords in the kingdom. How many Siege 16s do you have, their average power? How many Siege 25s do you have, their average power? And then how many of them, again, if there is a KVK going on, how many of the total players have actually went to KVK to kind of show you general activity for that KVK? So when we look here, some of the things that are very obvious to me, and again, you could say 1 billion power probably isn't that bad, but I'm looking at it from 1 billion and less because you probably would want to have more than 50 to 150 people in your kingdom total, especially those that are active. And I think probably the more hard indicator is looking at the Siege 16s, because that to me, especially, you have to understand these kingdoms have been playing for at least 3 or more seasons. And so when you look at the CH16, which I think is probably more of the honest indicator here on how many people, I mean, you can't say that you haven't been able to get to CH16 within 3 seasons. Like that would be a reach, unless you're just not that active. So now let's go ahead and we'll work our way up a little bit more here. So I think this is fine. And so now, as we get a little bit higher, you're starting to see the power getting lower. Right now we're under 900, under 800 at the start here from 65 to 66. You can see here based on SOS, that's Season of Strife. PS is pre-Strife, and then we have S2, and I think there was one at S1 there that we might have shown. And so here, now you're looking at CH16s, right? This isn't that bad, right? You got 221, 899, but then look, you have a sprinkle of ones that are under 100. You got a 48 here that's 958. You have a one here, right? Look, you have 101 people that could have went to the KVK in this group, but only 46 right? So less than half participated. Here, right, you have a 221, which isn't bad, 221, but then look, a 49, 49, 57, some 80s. You got a few hundreds here. And so, again, you're going to notice that the numbers are getting lower and lower. So now, let's go ahead and work our way up a little bit more. Here, again, not bad. Even for 716 million power for their top 300, they got 193 people over CH16. Right, here's a good one. You have 176 people in Kingdom 517, but you only had 80 people go to the KVK, right? That's less than half. Even here, 73, but only 22 people went, right? That's less than a third. Even here, less than half, right? Maybe a little more than a third, right? For 449. So now let's go a little bit more. And here, Now we're getting what? We're below 700, right? Getting to about 600 mil for total power. And right, you got some 123, so 156, 186. This isn't bad. But like this one, 156, you got 38 people that are participating. 90, you got 31 CH16 plus, right? A third. You got little, what is this, half about? Right, from 123 to 64, 94 to 27, that's about a third. And as we continue going. So now, again, as we get higher, you're probably going to get to some of these lower numbers. And one that sticks out is this 25 and 37. Right now, you're below 600 mil total power, right? And to keep in mind, most of these are Season of Strife or are pre-Strife. So you're talking Season 3 and beyond. You look here, you got 132 CH16s, but you only got 55 participating, right? You could even argue for these kingdoms, based on when the KVK is going, how many people are actually participating in the KVK. You could make an argument is probably even more valid for the people that are there at CH16 plus, because that's probably more of a truer indicator beyond CH16 for how many people are going to fight in a KVK, which is kind of one of the main points of playing the game. And so we could say that the CH16 KVK, at least for the ones that have the numbers pulled, probably is the most accurate indicator. And then it's probably the CH16, and then we'd be looking at power, and then probably ally lords too as well, which I think is really important, because if you think about, you have, like, let's find one that's kind of rough here. I don't know how many, but like, let's look out here. So you got 113. I think any of these is probably okay. But the point is if you have 113 total players, but you only have 88 of those players in an alliance, you know, that probably is more of the ally lords. And then you look at the CH. Now I wonder if I could have done CH. I bet you I could ask Fuzzy if I could have done how many CH16 pluses are in an alliance, and then how many CH16, CH25s are in an alliance. That probably would have been maybe a little bit more if we could have fine-tuned that a bit. But I do think the people that are participating in the KVK is still the most accurate indicator at the moment. And then we look at, let's go a little bit higher here. So now we're under 400 mil now, right? Under 500 and then under 400 mil going into number 18 at 496. Now you're seeing, right, total lords getting more consistently under 100. We're seeing some lower numbers here for ally lords. Even when you look here, right, you got 74 ally lords, 18 participating, or sorry, yeah, I guess you could say that, but 65 CH16 pluses, 18, 64, that's a third, 79, 38, less than half, 58, 22, less than half. And the zeros probably most likely just mean that they're not in the KVK yet. So we're not really going to be counting those ones per se. Okay, now let's go ahead and look a little bit higher. And now you're seeing here, right, you got under 400. Now you're under 300, right? You're getting close to low twos. And here you got consistently under 100 lords here. If you look at the CH16s, it's been under 100 for a minute. Right, you look at, you got 48 CH16s where only 6 people went in to KVK. 41 CH16s where only 5 people went in. And then you look at the very bottom, and you got 2 kingdoms that are under 200 mil, right? Again, most of these are SOS, PS, right? You've got some S2s that are here as well, but again, we're not really looking at those for the most part. Now, what I will say is, and I think the data is very clear, that there are a number, right? Even if you don't want to go as high as 1 billion power, and maybe you want to look at, 500 mil and below, or 600 or 700 mil and below. These are still low activity kingdoms. I'm okay looking at 1 billion and below if it is Season of Strife, because at that point you finish 3 seasons currently, and you're going into your 4th. I think that's okay. Now, when it applies to what kind of method do I think we would be able to use for merging kingdoms? Well, I think you need to at least let the kingdoms play out 3 to 4 seasons. And I say that because you need to at least allow the kingdom to get to Season of Strife and play out 1 season, or at least get into the pre-war. And I say this because you want to be able to give the current kingdoms in Season of Strife an opportunity to potentially rebuild in a dead kingdom or a low activity kingdom. And then after you've ran 1 season in Season of Strife, then, or in the Season of Strife circuit, then if you still maintain, then you would then be eligible for getting merged, right? Going prior to the next season. And then you would basically collect any of those kingdoms that fall into the same categories, and then you would merge them together. Why do I think this is a good idea? Well, for a few reasons. One, it allows for a higher concentration of active players within kingdoms that will inherently be active. When you are in a kingdom that is dying, dead, low activity, that can demotivate a lot of players, not only from playing the game, but potentially even to where they might just uninstall and stop playing the game altogether. We are social creatures. We enjoy having a socialized community that we can participate and engage in aside from playing. And because we know that a kingdom is active, that can also have a snowball effect for our own activity to increase. And more importantly, probably just to sustain. Number two is that when you are being merged into a kingdom, this can reinvigorate your activity. And I'll give you a great example. For those of you that remember and that have been here long enough, when we had kingdoms in the game, when we had KVKs in the game where you would be in the KVK early on, but you were not able to go back to your home kingdom, right? This was before home kingdoms were introduced. You basically, right, just imagine this as a KVK, you're just going from one KVK to the next. You don't have any home kingdom to go back to, and it also made it difficult for you to figure out, well, who's in my kingdom? Because you basically would have to have kept track of every single player that was in your kingdom before you went into your first KVK, because that was the only time you had in your home kingdom. Aside from that, you're basically in this floating limbo, going from one KVK map to the next KVK map / season. And the only way you could really figure out what kingdom the players were in is if you basically went around and asked everyone for screenshots. Just think about how crazy that is on the amount of work you would have had to do as a member of Alliance or Kingdom Management just to figure that out. But once home kingdoms were introduced, what did we see? Well, we saw a level of reinvigoration in a number of those kingdoms. Because why? Well, now they know who's actually there and who's not there. And now people can join alliances and be a part of active alliances and active social communities. Whereas before, maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but they just didn't know where they were. They didn't know what alliance they were in, or for the most part, right? And you, of course, are going to have some that were aware because they might have just been in some of those active and socially engaged alliances from the beginning, from Season 1 beyond. But now you have this chance to get back in, and that is what at least I ended up seeing for a number of kingdoms once home kingdoms were introduced. And this is something that I really believe can be a benefit. Being able to also merge dead kingdoms, I feel, allows us to have more, and I guess this would be point number 3, allows us to have more balanced and fair matchups when it comes to KVK matchmaking, registration, and teams. And also just pairings on who you're going to go up against versus another. And that's because if you're consolidating the power, you're going to have stronger kingdoms. Now, we're not necessarily saying that you're just going to create super kingdoms from this, but I do believe finding a healthy median average where you're at least allowing for, at minimum, maybe 1 to 1.5 alliances of fill is okay. Even maybe up to 2. I think if you're looking at kind of average caps for power, and let's give an example on our master sheet where we looked at kingdoms, and I'll show you this, right? So let's look at like the top 25 kingdoms that we looked at just to kind of give an idea. So here you have, if you look at the bottom, which is probably more important, not necessarily the top, right? The top portion, the top of 25 was like 19, 20 bill. I think it's okay to maybe merge kingdoms enough together to maybe where they're around, let's say 10 billion. Right? I think that's okay. Now, some of you might think a little bit more, a little bit less. I kind of am somewhere okay where, because you have to think about, you're thinking about Season of Strife, right? These are kingdoms and players that have been going at least 4 seasons or longer. So what would be an appropriate median average power to put them at? I say 10 bill because I think that you're kind of on the low mid end. Now, maybe you could say somewhere between 10 and 14. I think that might be okay if you're looking at kind of a range, maybe like 9, 8 to 14. But I think like 10, maybe 10, 11 is okay. If you want to say 10 to 12, I think that's fine as well. Because it still puts you at more of a median average where you're not too high and you're not too low, but you're active enough to where you can participate and actually contribute decently in a KVK. And it also gives you opportunities to then recruit and bring people in. So they're not just putting you at a full status, right? They're probably putting you more at an active status, but below crowded. And so I think when you factor in a couple of those elements, it can make a little bit of sense. However, that's it for me. I want to pass it off to you. Do you think we should be merging dead kingdoms, inactive, low activity kingdoms? And if so, What do you think? What do you think the process should be? And what do you think the power cap should be at for a merged kingdom that's including however many? So that way it's like not too weak to where it doesn't make sense, but it's not too overpowered to where it's like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense either. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.